The galaxy was at war. For years, countless species fought for power, land, and resources. Humanity, caught in the middle, had long been underestimated. They were seen as weak, fragile, and not capable of making a real impact. The great empires of the galaxy believed that humans would either fall in line or be wiped out. But they didn't understand one thing: humans were fighters. Deep in the heart of a forgotten star system, a discovery was about to change everything. It all began when a small team of human explorers set off on a routine mission to scan an ancient dead planet, one that was thought to have no value. The planet, called Overis, had once been a thriving world, but had been abandoned long ago after its resources were depleted. It had been left in the shadows, overlooked by the powerful factions that ruled the galaxy. But for the humans, it was just another mission, a job to complete. Captain Evelyn Ross led the crew. She was a no-nonsense leader, always focused on the mission. Her team was small, only 5 members, but they were some of the best engineers, scouts, and analysts humanity had to offer. The mission to Overis was simple: scan the planet, collect any data, and leave. Nothing out of the ordinary. But when they arrived, they found something that wasn't in the mission brief. It was hidden beneath the surface of the planet, buried deep in the rock, far from where any normal scan would reach. At first, it was just a faint signal, a strange energy reading that they couldn't explain. It didn't make sense. The planet had been thought to be empty, but this reading was strong, powerful. Something was down there, and it wasn't natural. "Captain, you need to see this," one of the engineers, Lieutenant Marcus, called out over the comms. "I think we found something. Something big." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" Marcus hesitated before replying. "I'm not sure, Captain, but whatever it is, it's ancient and unlike anything we've ever seen before. The readings are off the charts." Evelyn frowned. "How far down is it?" "At least 10 miles below the surface," Marcus said. "It's going to take us some time to get there, but we can't ignore this." The captain didn't hesitate. She knew something big was at stake. "All right, get the equipment ready. We're going down." The team assembled quickly, and they set off toward the source of the signal. They trekked across the barren surface of Overis, the wind howling as it kicked up dust. The planet was eerily silent, a graveyard of a once thriving world. They found the entrance hidden beneath an overgrown rock formation. A large, jagged stone door lay in front of them, cracked and weathered by centuries of neglect. But there was no mistaking it. The structure was not of natural origin. It was man-made. The door opened with a screech, revealing a dark passage leading deep into the planet. As they descended, the air grew colder and the atmosphere became thicker. It was as though they were entering a different world altogether. They'd followed the winding corridors for what felt like hours, passing through enormous halls that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. Then they reached the core of the structure. What they found was beyond anything they had imagined. A massive ship, no, a warship, sat dormant in the center of the chamber. It was unlike any technology humanity had ever encountered. The ship's design was sleek, angular, and impossibly advanced. The metal seemed to shimmer, even though it had been abandoned for millennia. There were strange symbols etched into the ship's surface, symbols that didn't belong to any known race. Is this human?" Evelyn asked, her voice barely a whisper as she stared at the massive ship. Marcus stepped forward, examining the ship's hull. "No, Captain. This is far beyond anything we've built. This technology, it's not ours. Who else could have built this?" Evelyn asked, a mix of awe and concern in her voice. "And why is it here?" The questions flooded her mind, but there were no answers. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had uncovered something dangerous, something that had been hidden away for a reason. The team set to work, using their tools to examine the warship, scanning its energy sources and analyzing its systems. It was a monumental task, but they needed answers, and they needed them quickly. As hours passed, They began to understand just how powerful this ship was. It wasn't just a ship. It was a weapon, designed for war on a scale that no one had ever seen before. "Captain," Marcus called out from the ship's command center. "This thing, it's alive. I mean, it's not just a machine. It has an energy source unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's sentient, or at least it seems like it." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, alive?" "I'm not sure," Marcus replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "It's like it has a consciousness. It's responding to us, Captain. But it's not just us. It's reacting to the galaxy's energy signals. It's been dormant for centuries, but now it's waking up." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "What's happening?" "I don't know," Marcus said, his voice filled with unease. "But whatever it is, it's happening now." Suddenly, the warship's engines hummed to life. A low, deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet, and the air around them seemed to crackle with energy. Lights flickered on, revealing the vast interior of the ship. It was as though the ship was coming back to life, as though it had been waiting for something. And then, the unimaginable happened. A powerful energy pulse shot out from the ship, streaking across the galaxy. It was so intense, so powerful, that it was felt even in distant star systems. The pulse was a signal, a call that resonated with every living thing in the galaxy. It was a warning. The humans had just awakened something that had been buried for a reason, something that would change the balance of power forever. Evelyn stared in disbelief as the pulse faded into the darkness of space. "What have we done?" she whispered. She knew, deep down, that this discovery was no accident. It was a weapon, far too powerful for anyone to control. And now, the galaxy would feel its wrath. The Jar, a ruthless empire known for its iron grip on the galaxy, were the first to notice. They had been monitoring human activities for years, but they had no idea the humans had this kind of weapon at their disposal. The pulse was a signal of power, a challenge. It was something the Jar could not ignore. In the dark corners of the galaxy, the Jar fleet began to move. They had to investigate the source of the signal, and they were determined to seize the weapon for themselves. But the humans had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that they had just made a choice that would lead to war. The warship, once a forgotten relic, was now a catalyst for something far bigger than anyone had imagined. The battle for control of the galaxy had just begun, and humanity had just unlocked a power they couldn't fully understand. The human team, still reeling from the discovery of the warship, knew they had only scratched the surface. As the ship hummed to life, a sense of unease settled over Captain Evelyn Ross. Her heart raced as she watched the once dormant warship awaken, its massive engines thrumming with energy, the lights flickering to life one by one, revealing more of its vast, imposing interior. The pulse of energy that had shot across the galaxy left the team speechless. It wasn't just a ship. It was a weapon, a force unlike anything they had ever imagined. Evelyn paced the control room, her mind racing. "What have we just unlocked?" she muttered under her breath. She couldn't shake the thought that they had disturbed something far bigger than themselves. And the worst part was, they didn't know who or what else was out there that might be aware of what they had found. They had unknowingly sent a signal across the galaxy, and soon others would come for the ship, for the power it held. The ship's systems, once dormant for centuries, were beginning to respond to their presence. It was as if it was reacting to the signals of the galaxy, pulling energy from the stars, charging itself with the might of 1,000 suns. It wasn't just a relic. It was a living, breathing weapon. Evelyn had no idea how this technology had come to be or who had created it, but she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was about to change. Humanity had just awakened something that could bring about their salvation or their destruction. The crew worked tirelessly, scanning every inch of the ship's advanced systems, trying to make sense of what they had found. But the technology was beyond their understanding. It was unlike anything humanity had ever developed, and it seemed to hold an intelligence of its own. Despite their best efforts, the team couldn't get a clear read on what the ship could do. It was as though it was still testing them, feeling them out, deciding whether they were worthy of its power. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. The Jar, an empire known for their ruthless conquests and iron grip on power, had detected the energy pulse. They had been keeping an eye on humanity for some time now, but they had never expected this. The pulse was unmistakable, a sign of power, a challenge, an invitation. The Jar couldn't ignore it, and they would not allow anyone to wield such strength without claiming it for themselves. The Jar fleet mobilized quickly, moving towards the source of the pulse with a single-minded purpose. They were determined to take control of the ship, to possess the weapon that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But what they didn't know was that the ship, and the humans who had awoken it, were no longer the helpless targets they once thought. The discovery of the warship had changed everything. As the Jar fleet moved closer, Evelyn and her team began to realize the true weight of what they had uncovered. They were not just explorers anymore. They were the custodians of a weapon that could reshape the galaxy. They had unknowingly sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer weak. They had power. And now that they had to prepare for the inevitable battle that would follow. But the ship's technology, still untested and unpredictable, left them with more questions than answers. The energy it emitted was immense, but its purpose was unclear. Evelyn felt a growing sense of dread. They had no idea who else might be watching, or what the ship would do once it was fully awakened. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. As they continued to study the warship, the pulse of energy resonated throughout the galaxy, attracting more attention than they had ever imagined. And before they knew it, the war was already beginning. The Jar were coming, and humanity was standing at the precipice of a new age, one where they would either rise to the challenge or be crushed beneath the weight of their own ambition. The clock was ticking, and Evelyn knew that they had to make a decision. Would they take control of the ship's power and use it to fight back? Or would they be swept away by the storm that was coming for them? The fate of humanity, and the galaxy itself, rested in their hands. But one thing was certain: the warship was just the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long, and now it would pay the price for its mistake. Humanity had a weapon so powerful, so deadly, that it could change the fate of every species in the galaxy. And they weren't going to let anyone take it from them. The ultimate human warship was awake, and its power was about to be unleashed. As the Jar fleet drew closer, Evelyn and her crew braced themselves for the inevitable battle. They were no longer just explorers, they were warriors, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was capable of. The human crew stood in tense silence as the massive warship powered up, its systems coming to life one by one, each hum sending a ripple of energy through the atmosphere. Captain Evelyn Ross stared at the main screen, her mind racing. The discovery they had made on that forgotten planet had turned everything upside down. What was once a simple mission to explore alien ruins had transformed into something far more dangerous. Humanity had awoken a force that could rival the power of the entire galaxy. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," Evelyn said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "We can't afford to make mistakes now. Whatever this ship is, it's not like anything we've ever seen. It could either be our salvation or our doom." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Gabriel Kane, nodded, his face a mask of concentration as he ran diagnostics on the warship's systems. The ship had no name, no markings, no history to speak of. It was a mystery, but it was also humanity's only hope in the face of the coming storm. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts," Gabriel reported, his tone edged with awe. "This ship could easily outmatch anything in the Jar fleet, but we don't know if it's ready to fight, or if it's just waiting for something." Evelyn clenched her fists. The Jar Empire, a brutal and technologically advanced species, had been a constant threat ever since humanity had ventured into the stars. Their fleet was vast, and they were known for their merciless tactics. They had already begun to make their way toward the source of the pulse, and Evelyn knew that if they reached the warship before humanity fully understood it, the consequences would be catastrophic. "We need to buy ourselves time," she said, her voice firm. "If the Jar find out what we have here before we're ready, they'll take it from us. We need to secure this ship and learn how to use it. We can't let them have it." As they worked, strange things began to happen. The ship's systems seemed to react to their presence, its power fluctuating in ways they couldn't predict. The warship was beginning to take shape before their eyes, but in a way that felt more organic than mechanical. It was as if the ship itself was alive, reacting to the humans who had woken it. "Captain," Gabriel called out, his voice urgent. "There's something else. This ship, it's speaking to us. Through the energy pulses, it's trying to communicate, but we can't decipher it. The frequency is unlike anything we've ever encountered." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. Could it be possible? Was the ship not just a weapon, but a sentient being capable of thought? If that was the case, humanity was facing something far beyond what they had ever imagined. Not only would they have to deal with the Jar Empire, but now they had to contend with an alien intelligence that might not even view them as worthy of its power. "We need to figure this out quickly," Evelyn said, her mind spinning. "We're running out of time." But as they scrambled to find a way to understand the ship's signals, a chilling realization set in. The Jar were closer than they had thought. Their fleet was on the move, and they weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to claim the warship, and they would stop at nothing to get it. "Captain, the Jar fleet is approaching fast," Gabriel said, his voice grim. "We don't have much time before they arrive." Evelyn's gaze hardened. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. Now, with this warship, humanity had the power to not just survive, but to fight back. She wasn't about to let the Jar take what they had discovered. The Jar fleet, sleek and menacing, loomed in the distance, its enormous ships cutting through space like predators on the hunt. As Captain Evelyn Ross watched from the command center, the cold weight of the situation settled over her. The warship, still partially dormant, but awakening with every passing moment, was their last chance. It was humanity's ultimate weapon, and the Jar were determined to claim it. "Incoming transmission from the Jar fleet, Captain," Gabriel reported, his voice tight with tension. "They're hailing us." Evelyn stood up, her fingers brushing the edges of the command console. She had been expecting this. The Jar, known for their ruthless efficiency and desire to dominate, wouldn't hesitate to make an offer they thought would sway humanity. But Evelyn had no intention of giving in. This warship was humanity's future, and she was determined to defend it. "Put them through," Evelyn ordered, her tone unwavering. The screen flickered, and a Jar commander appeared, his reptilian face cold and calculating. His voice was smooth, but laced with an unmistakable sense of superiority. "Captain Ross, I am Commander Karas of the Jar Empire," the alien said, his eyes narrowing slightly as he spoke. "We have detected an unauthorized energy surge originating from your position. You are in possession of a weapon that belongs to the Jar. Surrender the warship, and we will consider your people's future favorable." Evelyn's jaw clenched as she listened. The arrogance in the commander's voice was clear. They thought they could simply waltz in and take what humanity had uncovered without a second thought. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Commander," Evelyn replied, her voice sharp and steady. "This ship doesn't belong to the Jar. It belongs to humanity, and we intend to keep it." The commander's eyes flashed with irritation, but his expression quickly returned to its cold, calculated state. "You misunderstand, Captain. The Jar Empire does not negotiate. This is your only chance. Surrender the ship now, or we will take it by force." Evelyn's heart raced, but her expression remained calm. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a threat. The Jar had already decided what they wanted, and they would stop at nothing to get it. But she wasn't about to back down. Not when the future of humanity was on the line. "You've made your choice, Commander," Evelyn said, her voice firm. "And so have we." She cut the transmission, her fingers trembling slightly as she pressed the button. Silence filled the command room as everyone absorbed the weight of her decision. The Jar were not coming to negotiate. They were coming to take the warship by force. Humanity was about to enter a battle for their survival. "Prepare the ship for battle," Evelyn ordered, her voice sharp. "We're not giving up without a fight." The crew sprang into action, moving with practiced efficiency. They were ready, but Evelyn knew that what they were about to face would test them in ways they had never imagined. The warship had the power to change everything, but it was still an unknown. Would it respond to their commands? Would it fight alongside them, or would it remain a passive force? The Jar fleet drew closer, and the tension in the air grew thicker. It was no longer just about protecting the warship. It was about proving that humanity would not be intimidated. For years, they had been underestimating the power of humanity, and now, with this weapon, they would learn just how wrong they were. As the first shots were fired, Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. The warship's massive cannons came to life, firing bursts of energy that split the void between the ships. The Jar responded with their own firepower, their ships maneuvering with frightening precision. But the human warship was different. It moved with an almost unnatural grace, dodging and weaving through the enemy fire as if it were alive, a reflection of humanity's will to survive. "Captain, the warship is adapting to our commands," Gabriel said, his voice filled with astonishment. "It's like it's learning." Evelyn's eyes widened as the realization hit her. The warship wasn't just a weapon. It was a living, breathing entity, capable of responding to the needs of the crew. It wasn't merely a tool. It was an extension of humanity's will to fight, to protect, to survive. This was something they had never imagined, something far beyond their wildest dreams. The battle raged on, each side unleashing everything they had. The Jar fleet, powerful and brutal, was relentless. But the human warship, with its almost sentient awareness, was proving to be an unstoppable force. The crew fought with everything they had, but they weren't alone. The warship was with them, guiding them, reacting to their every move. "Captain, we're pushing them back," Gabriel shouted, his voice filled with awe. Evelyn's heart soared. They were winning, against all odds. The Jar, with all their power and arrogance, were being forced to retreat. Humanity had shown them something they had never expected. The strength to fight back, the courage to stand their ground, and the power of the warship. But as the Jar fleet began to pull back, Evelyn knew this was far from over. This was only the beginning. The Jar would return, and they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The warship was humanity's greatest weapon, but it was also a beacon, a signal that would draw the attention of every empire in the galaxy. Evelyn stood at the helm, her grip tightening on the console. The war had just begun, and humanity had proven it would not back down. The galaxy would soon learn that the ultimate human warship was not just a force to be reckoned with. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, determination, and will to survive. The Jar may have underestimated humanity once, but never again. The battle raged on in the cold depths of space, the vast expanse illuminated by the flashes of energy weapons and the destruction of ships. The human warship, once dormant and enigmatic, had awoken and was proving to be an unstoppable force. The Jar, ruthless and unyielding, had never expected such resistance. They had thought their numbers and technology would be enough to crush humanity, but they were wrong. The warship's power was something beyond their comprehension, and it was showing no signs of stopping. Evelyn stood at the command center, her eyes locked on the view screen as the Jar fleet scattered in retreat. The alien ships were beginning to break formation, their once coordinated attacks falling apart in the face of the human warship's devastating counterattacks. It was a sight Evelyn never thought she would witness. A victory. But even as the Jar pulled back, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. "Report," Evelyn ordered, her voice firm but calm. Gabriel's voice came through, tense but filled with pride. "The Jar fleet is retreating, Captain. We've taken out their lead ship, and their formations are breaking apart. We're forcing them into a full retreat." A sense of accomplishment spread through the crew, but Evelyn remained focused. The victory was significant, but the war was far from over. The Jar were powerful, and this setback would only fuel their anger. They would come back with a vengeance. "We can't let our guard down," Evelyn said, her voice steady. "Prepare for any follow-up attacks. We've only just proven that humanity has teeth, but the Jar won't forget what we've done today." As her crew moved to follow orders, Evelyn took a moment to let the weight of the victory sink in. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was capable of more than they had ever imagined. The warship, with its unimaginable power, had become the key to humanity's survival in the galaxy, and it was a symbol of everything humanity stood for: strength, unity, and resilience. But there was more to the warship than just its firepower. Evelyn could feel the connection between the crew and the ship itself, as if it were alive, reacting to their every command. The warship wasn't just a tool, it was part of them now, the living, breathing force that was as much a reflection of humanity's will to survive as it was a weapon of destruction. The way it adapted to their needs, its ability to anticipate and respond to threats, was something they hadn't fully understood yet, and Evelyn knew that it was this bond between ship and crew that would determine the outcome of the war. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Jar," Gabriel said, his voice now tinged with a hint of disbelief. Evelyn straightened, her curiosity piqued. The Jar had just been routed, so why would they be contacting her again? "Put them through," she ordered, her gaze sharpening. The screen flickered, and once again the cold, reptilian face of Commander Karaz appeared. But this time, there was no arrogance in his expression. Instead, there was something else, something more dangerous. "Captain Ross," the Jar commander said, his voice colder than before, "you have won this round. But know this, our empire does not forget its enemies. You have made a powerful foe today, and the consequences of this encounter will be felt throughout the galaxy." Evelyn met his gaze, unflinching. "We didn't start this war, Commander," she replied. "You did. You underestimated humanity, and that's something you'll regret." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps, but make no mistake, this is far from over. You have awakened something that even you cannot control." The transmission ended abruptly, and the room fell silent. Evelyn knew that the Jar's threat was far from empty. They were not going to let this humiliation slide. "Prepare for whatever comes next," Evelyn ordered. "They'll be back, and this time, we won't be caught off guard." As she turned to face the crew, she saw the determination in their eyes. They were ready. The victory was important, but they all understood that the real fight had only just begun. The warship, their ultimate weapon, had given them the edge they needed, but they couldn't afford to become complacent. For now, they had forced the Jar into a retreat, but Evelyn knew they would be back, and when they returned, they would bring everything they had. The warship would have to evolve with them, and humanity would have to be prepared to fight on a level they had never known before. The galaxy had seen the true power of humanity, but it was still unsure of what that meant. The Jar had learned one lesson: never underestimate humanity. But the galaxy would soon learn another. This warship was only the beginning. Humanity would no longer be a passive player in the galaxy. They had a weapon now, one that could change the balance of power forever. As the warship drifted through the void of space, Evelyn Ross couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The Jar were just one threat. There were others out there, and they were watching. But humanity had something no one else had: the will to survive, the determination to protect, and a warship powerful enough to take on the galaxy. The fight for the future of humanity had only just begun. The Aetherians' warning echoed in Evelyn's mind, but there was no time to dwell on it. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the heart of it. The crew was still recovering from the shock of the encounter, But Evelyn knew she couldn't let fear or uncertainty slow them down. They had one chance to prove themselves, one chance to take control of their destiny. The warship had given them the power, and it was time to use it. "Captain," Gabriel's voice interrupted her thoughts. "The Aetherians are still monitoring us. They're not leaving." Evelyn nodded. She had anticipated that. The Aetherians had warned them, but they hadn't attacked. They were waiting, observing, trying to figure out humanity's next move. She had no intention of giving them the satisfaction of seeing humanity back down. "Prepare to move out," Evelyn ordered. "We need to show the galaxy that humanity is no longer a species to be ignored." The crew immediately began working, powering up the warship's engines. The massive vessel thrummed with energy as it prepared to leave its stationary position and venture into uncharted space. Evelyn knew that this mission would determine everything. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about asserting humanity's place in the galaxy. As the warship broke free from the confines of its hidden location, Evelyn felt the weight of history on her shoulders. The Aetherians were watching. The Jar were waiting for their next move. And now, new enemies, possibly far more dangerous than the Jar, were emerging from the shadows. But Evelyn wasn't about to let humanity back down. Not when they had the warship. Not when they had the power to shape the future. "Captain, we've got another signal," Gabriel called out. "It's from the Aetherians again." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. She knew this wasn't just a friendly check-in. The Aetherians weren't just warning them anymore. They were starting to show their true intentions. "Put it through," Evelyn ordered, her voice steady despite the growing tension. The screen flickered, and the same soothing voice of the Aetherian leader filled the command room. "Captain Ross," it said, its tone almost too calm. "You are proceeding down a path that will lead to destruction. We have already seen this happen with countless other species. Your warship is a powerful tool, but it is not a solution. It will only bring you more enemies." Evelyn stood tall, her resolve hardening. "We will decide our fate, not you." The Aetherian's voice softened. "You misunderstand. We are not your enemy. We wish to help, but you must listen to us. Your actions are drawing the attention of forces far beyond what you can comprehend. The Jar are but the beginning." Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. She could see the fear in the eyes of her crew. The galaxy was vast, and there were forces out there that humanity had no understanding of, yet. But Evelyn refused to back down. She knew what was at stake: humanity's survival. "We don't need your help," she replied firmly. "We've fought for our place in this galaxy, and we will keep fighting. No one will stop us." The Aetherian silence was deafening. For a moment, Evelyn thought the communication had cut out, but then the voice returned, tinged with something almost like regret. "Very well," it said. "But understand this, Captain Ross. What you are about to face will not be a war you can win. It will be the end of everything you know." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Evelyn standing in the command center, her crew waiting for her next command. She could feel the weight of the Aetherians' words, but she refused to let them cloud her judgment. The galaxy may have underestimated humanity before, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. "Prepare for whatever comes next," Evelyn said, her voice filled with determination. "We're not backing down now." The warship surged forward, cutting through the stars with a force that resonated with power. The crew felt the ship's pulse, the hum of its engines, and they knew this was humanity's moment. They would face whatever threat the galaxy could throw at them, and they would fight with everything they had. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibilities, but Evelyn knew one thing for sure: they were no longer just observers in the galaxy. They were players, and they had just made their first move. As the warship moved deeper into uncharted space, the crew braced themselves. There was no turning back now. The galaxy had already begun to notice them, and whatever came next would determine whether humanity would rise to become the most powerful force in the universe, or be wiped out by those who feared them. Evelyn's grip tightened on the command console. She could feel the future of humanity in her hands. The next chapter was about to unfold, and whatever it held, she would face it head-on. There was no other choice. The warship roared through the void, and humanity's fight for its place in the galaxy had just begun.